I'm Sean Delaney, and today on the What Got You There podcast, I sit down with Donald Robertson, who's an author, psychotherapist, and trainer, and we are going to talk so much about Stoicism because he studied the Stoics more than very few people on this planet, and he dives deep on the practices that he learned from the Stoics that we can use in our own lives today to help live a deeper, more enriching, fulfilling life. What Got You There is a podcast for high achievers looking to learn from the most successful people of all time what their strategies, lessons, and routines are that made them successful. Now it's your journey, so it's time to learn what's going to get you there. Donald, welcome to What Got You There. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I would love to start though. I want to know, has there been a consistent theme or consistent thing that you've been trying to solve or learn or uncover throughout the entire course of all the years you've been working?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I first became interested in philosophy and therapy and stuff like that, and also in meditation, was I was just kind of looking for a philosophy of life, basically. I guess I had a kind of Christian upbringing as a child in the Church of Scotland, and then I kind of left that behind, and I was probably looking for something to kind of fill that gap. And I thought I'd find it in academic philosophy, and I didn't really find it when I did my philosophy degree. But afterwards, after graduating, I learned about the Stoics and I studied them, and I just suddenly felt as if it slotted into place perfectly for me. And that was over 25 years ago now, I think.
I'm curious now, just better understanding our own selves, right? Like we're all in search of how does this become practical. So I'm thinking about your background within CBT and then how you combine this with Stoicism. I'm wondering for you, what have you found to be some of the most helpful exercises over the years in terms of uncovering some of that self-knowledge?
I think, let's see, God, there are so many. The first book I wrote in Stoicism, I listed all the psychological exercises that I could find, and that many of which Hadot had listed, and I compared them to exercises that exist in modern psychotherapy, like the ones that I could find in Stoicism, and there were about 18. So there were loads of them. So some of the main ones that contribute to self-knowledge, I think, are, first of all, to know ourselves. I think we have to know what our core values are. So the Stoics and the Greek philosophers in general would say that means knowing our telos, our fundamental goal, like the meaning of life. Why are we here? What is it we're trying to achieve? What's our real goal? Is it just to make loads of money? Like, is it to get, as many followers on social media as possible? Or is there some other goal that we're supposed to have, that nature intended us to have, that's more fundamental to our very existence? And the ancient philosophers argued about that, and their different schools were defined in some ways by the different definition that they give of it. Some said it was pleasure, some said it was peace of mind, some said it was knowledge. But for the Stoics, the telos is arete, or virtue. It's to excel in accord with reason. So it's to apply reason consistently to our daily lives, which they saw as a kind of moral or practical wisdom. And they thought if you can even come close to that, you'll be flourishing and achieving the fundamental goal of human existence. Nature has given us self-awareness and reason, so we should use it well. How do we do that? The Stoics think we have a kind of blind spot that gets in the way. We get confused about what our values are and what it would look like to flourish. We're misled by external appearances. And they thought one way around that is to contemplate what we admire most in other people. This is a technique that we also use today in what we call values clarification in positive psychology and cognitive therapy. So we would say, who are the people you admire most? What is it that you actually admire about them? Is it that they've got loads of money? Is it that they've got loads of followers? Or is there something more fundamental that you see as admirable in people's character? Like, is it wisdom? Is it courage? Is it integrity? Is it creativity? Is it character traits like that you really admire in your heroes? And it could also be historical figures or even fictional characters that you admire, but what makes them genuinely admirable to you? And once we've explored that, we can then say, well, how much time do you spend each day in minutes trying to actually embody the qualities that you most admire in other people? And I learned quickly that the most common answer to that question among my clients in psychotherapy was 0 minutes, like, which is pretty weird. That's pretty shocking, right? So one of the most powerful techniques is to go, well, could you at least spend 1 minute a day trying to do what you've just told me you consider to be the most important thing in life? Like, the most important thing in life is just to kind of have compassion or to exhibit genuine. How much time did you spend doing that yesterday? Nothing, none. Like, well, could we maybe get that up to like 1 minute or 2 minutes at least, like, because then maybe in a sense you're just frittering your life away. What are we spending all our time doing if we're not actually like living in accord with the things that we ourselves consider to be most important? And the Stoics thought this was a crazy situation. Like, they thought we're all kind of nuts. Like, they said we're all foolish and insane because we stray so far off the path in life. And we need to really reflect on our values in this kind of way and ask ourselves these very penetrating questions and kind of drag ourselves back onto our own true path in life.
Doesn't Marcus Aurelius, doesn't he highlight this in the beginning of Meditations? He's basically describing the character traits of the people he most admires.
Yeah, and he later in the book, he even gives a rationale for it. He says, nothing gladdens your heart so much as reflecting on the virtues of those closest to you. So he's doing this as a way also of improving his mood. And elsewhere in the Meditations, he returns to it and does it again. But the whole of book 1 is him systematically trying to summarize the qualities that he admires in about 17 people. They're all family members or tutors. Only one of them is a woman, his mother, interestingly. But they're mainly Stoic philosophers that have taught him and members of his family that influenced him.
So you mentioned based on different schools of thought, different people are going after different things for you. What rings truest to yourself? What are you going after in pursuit of for a great life?
I think some kind of wisdom, or insight or enlightenment is the key to me. And I guess also kind of operationally to kind of get there, I honestly believe that contemplating our own mortality, I think we're all in a trance. Like, we're all kind of hypnotized. We're all essentially kind of like, we're all zombies. We live in this world where we're brainwashed by consumerism and like hedonism and social media and all these kind of superficial values that we get bombarded with from day one. So we grow up quite confused. The Stoics called it tuphos, which means a mist, like smoke and mirrors that surround us. Like, it's all an illusion. The prevailing values of society are all kind of back to front in a sense. And how do we snap out of that trance? Like, we kind of get glimpses that maybe like, how do we actually wake up like and snap out of it? And one of the things that has the power to snap us out of it, it seems, is a confrontation with our own mortality. When you're lying on your deathbed and you think, this is it, buddy, my time's up, maybe this is it. Like, I might only have minutes left. Like, and you look back on your life, then I think that can wrench you out of the smoke and mirrors and enable you to look at your life from a very different perspective and think, was it worth it? Nobody has on their gravestone etched, I wish I'd spent more time on Facebook, or I wish I'd watched more episodes of Friends or something like that. From that ultimate perspective, the deathbed perspective, often we think, I wish I'd been more creative. I wish I'd been more compassionate. Like, I wish I'd kind of like dug deeper to achieve insight into what this is all about before my time is up. So it makes us radically reappraise our values. Now, I realize, by the time you're 40, I think, I reckon at least half of us have had one or more brushes with death. By around about 40 or 50. Some people go their whole life and it never really hits them. Other people really early on, and it could be you find yourself in a dangerous situation. You think, whoa, that was a close shave. Like, I thought I was a goner there. I'm lucky to be alive. Or you have a health scare and you think, geez, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm dying. Or you lose people close to you. You're bereaved, and you think, geez, that could have been me. I saw how they were towards the end. Do I want to feel the same way when I look back in my life? And so confronting our own death or the death of others, I think, is one of the most powerful tools, this memento mori we mentioned earlier. It's a form of know yourself, because it makes us shift perspective so radically that we can question these values and start to think, what actually are my genuine priorities in life? What is my fundamental goal? And it's a constant effort to keep dragging ourselves, because there are forces at play to drag us in the opposite direction. And by forces, I mean society, like the news, social media, other people, bombarding us with their persuasion, like their influence, kind of like, unintentionally for the most part, I think, sometimes intentionally, trying to kind of like dupe us or talk us into things. And we're all super gullible. In a way, the Stoics wanted us to be less gullible, to kind of think more rationally, to rely on our own judgment more, and to think more critically before we run out of time.
This makes me think of the actor Michael Landon when he was facing his imminent death, and he had this line, "I wish I'd known that I was one day closer to death every day. I would have lived differently." I remember hearing about that, and that just impacted me. When you get to the end of this, what is this going to look like? I am wondering then, how did the Stoics, and how would you recommend dealing with the death of others?
I think the first thing the Stoics would say is that we have to prepare for these things in advance. The Stoics think we bury our head in the sand too much, and they talk about how, look, death is the common law of all of mankind. It's the one thing that we know with most certainty, is that everybody so far, every single human being so far in history has died. And you put it like that, it seems ridiculous that we kind of still manage to be in denial of it, right? We hide ourselves away from the prospect of death. We avoid thinking about it. And so they think the first thing is just to face up to it. To recognize it, to visualize it, like Ebenezer Scrooge in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. The ghost of future Christmas yet to come, if I remember rightly, drags him into the future and shows him his own funeral. Like, that's a memento mori. We should visualize our own funeral. We should think about what it's going to be like when we're gone. Seneca, every night when he went to bed, used to say, he says that as he put his head down and he went to sleep, he would say to himself, maybe I won't wake up tomorrow, which sounds pretty somber. And then each morning he'd say to himself, maybe this is going to be my last day on earth, maybe I won't make it to the end of the day. Like, so he's constantly reminding himself to think, what if this is it? What if this is your last opportunity? And not to think, oh, I'm just going to go on a massive hedonistic binge, but to force yourself to think, what do I really value though? What do I want to be remembered for? Like, what do I want my life to actually stand for? Those are some of the ways that the Stoics do it. But there's another technique which is also very important in Stoicism, which I think kind of dovetails with this. So we've got a bit of a segue here into another exercise, and it's probably the most popular Stoic exercise today. I think we call it the view from above. Pierre Hadot called it the view from above. We don't know what the Stoics called it. So it consists in visualizing your life from high above and imagining your place within the totality of time and the totality of cosmic space, like the whole context and our place within it, and how small the corner of the earth is that we live on, and how brief, Marcus Aurelius says, like the turn of a screw, our entire life is. And so when we visualize this vast cosmic perspective and our place within it, the Stoics believe that it allows us to confront the reality of our situation, but in a more detached way. And that's bound up with, when we visualize that, we have to kind of imagine, oh yes, our life is going to end, like, and vast aeons will follow, in which, after a while, people won't even remember it. Someone will say your name one day for the last time. Like, someone will remember you one day for the last time, and then never again. Then after that, no one will ever remember you again. Like, Marcus Aurelius, funnily enough, tells himself this, ironically, and yet we nearly 2,000 years later, we're still talking about him, right? He probably never even imagined we'd still be going on about him, like 1,800 years in the future after his death. But eventually, someone will mention Marcus Aurelius for the last time. Someone will mention Stoicism for the last time, and then like, it'll be gone from the universe forever. So to imagine the bigger picture is to imagine also the transience of all things, like the Buddhists say, the impermanence of things, including of our own existence.
How do you think through, like, one of the questions I get people push back on is, okay, this universe is so vast we can't even comprehend it, and we are so small, we're so insignificant, but at the same time we're the center of our own universe. I'm just wondering how you wrestle through that idea, right, where certain people bring up, well, if I'm so insignificant, then like, why does anything matter? Why would I do anything? And I'm just wondering how you think it through.
I think that it's interesting. I like Stoicism, like, is a philosophy built on paradox. Like Socrates' philosophy before them was as well. Socrates is kind of like the godfather of Stoicism, and I think really many. My gut feeling is that many of the philosophical answers to life's questions have to seem